Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. My sister tried to sabotage my wedding plans, so I invited her ex and stole the show. What the hell is he doing here? Chloe hissed, her fingers digging into my arms so hard I knew I'd find bruises the next day. Her eyes were locked on the ballroom doors where Leo had just walked in, looking annoyingly calm in a navy suit that fit him better than any of his old clothes ever had. I gently pulled my arm out of her grip and forced my face into a neutral smile because half my guests were within earshot. He was invited, I said quietly, and I'd really appreciate it if you didn't cause a scene at my wedding. She snapped her head toward me, mascaraed eyes wide. You invited my ex to your wedding? Are you insane? Her voice shot up at the end, that high-pitched shriek she gets when she's not getting her way. I watched three aunties glance over and then immediately pretend they weren't listening. You're about to walk down the aisle as my maid of honor, I murmured through my teeth. You will smile, hold my flowers, say nice things, and we can talk about this later. Or you can go home now and I'll ask Mia to step in. Her jaw clenched, and for a second I thought she'd actually throw the bouquet at my head. Instead, she inhaled sharply, plastered on a fake smile, and turned toward the photographer. Fine, she said, but you're going to regret this. If you told me a year ago that I'd end up inviting my sister's ex-boyfriend to my wedding, I would have laughed in your face. I'm not naturally petty or confrontational. I was always the good daughter, the peacemaker, the one who let things slide because that's just how Chloe is. I'm 29. My sister Chloe is 26, and we've had the same dynamic since we were kids. She's the loud, dramatic golden child. I'm the quiet, responsible one who makes sure the ship doesn't completely sink. Our parents encouraged it without even realizing they were doing it. When Chloe stole my clothes and forgot to give them back, Mom would say, she just wants to be like her big sister, take it as a compliment. When she threw tantrums, Dad would sigh and say, you know your sister is sensitive, just let her cool down. I learned early, it was easier to swallow my own anger than to deal with hers. Then I met Daniel. Daniel and I met at a friend's birthday dinner. He was the one who offered me his jacket when the restaurant's air conditioning was trying to freeze us all to death. We started talking about how we both loved stupid 80s music and terrible reality shows, and that was it. He was steady, kind, a bit dorky, and he actually listened when I talked. We dated for 3 years before he proposed. I genuinely didn't see it coming that night. Even though, looking back, he was so nervous he spilled wine on himself twice. He took me to the lookout where we had our first kiss, pulled this small, shaking box from his pocket, and asked me to marry him with this absolutely terrified expression, like he thought I might bolt. I cried. I said yes. We hugged for so long I forgot how cold it was. The first thing I did after calling my best friend was call my parents. Mom screamed, cried, yelled for Dad. Dad actually sounded excited. For about 48 hours, I thought maybe my life was finally slotting into place. Then came the sentence I should have anticipated. What did Chloe say? I hadn't called her yet. That was my mistake, apparently. In my defense, it was nearly midnight and she was probably out. I texted her instead. Dan proposed. I said yes. She didn't reply. The next morning, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, still in last night's makeup, holding an iced coffee. So, she flopped onto my couch without waiting to be invited. You're engaged. Good morning to you too, I said, half laughing, half wary. Yes. Look. I held out my hand. She grabbed it, examined the ring, and to her credit said, okay, that's actually gorgeous, before her eyes flicked to my face. Wow. You really beat me to it. There it was. I tried to brush past it. You'll get there when it's right, I said. This isn't a race. She rolled her eyes. Easy for you to say now. You've always been the boring, stable one. Of course you'd be the first to get married. Chloe, I started, but she was already on her phone, posting a selfie with my ring in the background. Caption: "My big sis is finally off the market, congrats Annie and Dan." It looked supportive from the outside. The comments rolled in, but the tone had been set. From that day on, every wedding decision we tried to make turned into a battlefield, with Chloe smack bang in the middle. I asked her to be my maid of honor because, despite everything, she's my sister. I genuinely thought it might be a healing moment for us. She burst into tears when I asked, big, dramatic, heaving sobs. "Of course," she said, hugging me. "I'll make your wedding perfect." What she meant was, I will make your wedding about me. It started small. We went dress shopping together with Mum. Every time I stepped out of the change room, Chloe would tilt her head and say something like, "It's nice, but don't you think it makes your hips look a bit wide? Or, I mean, if you want to look older, that's the one." Meanwhile, she spent half the appointment trying on bridesmaid dresses and spinning in front of the mirror saying, "Imagine this, but in white. I'd be such a hot bride." When we chose the bridesmaid dresses, a soft sage green that suited everyone, she texted me later. "Chloe, I don't know about the color, babe. It kind of washes me out. Maybe we could do a different color just for me?" Me: "No, they're all going to be the same. It looked beautiful on you." Chloe: "I mean, sure, lol. Your pics though." When we were making the seating chart, she insisted her then boyfriend, Jason, be seated at our head table, even though I never had a proper conversation with him, and he once referred to me as Daniel's owner as a joke. "It's weird if my boyfriend is sitting with the cousins while I'm up there," she argued. "Like I'm not single." "It's the bridal party at the head table," I said. "Partners sit together on another table. That's how it usually works." "Well, maybe your wedding will be different," she snapped. "Don't you want it to be fun?" Jason dumped her 2 months later anyway. The sabotage escalated slowly. First it was snide comments. "You sure you want that photographer? I've seen her stuff, it's a bit basic." Then it was forgetting to send information to the group chat, so the bridesmaids almost missed a fitting. Then she started making jokes around the family about how I was turning into a bridezilla. "I'm literally just asking you to respond to your messages," I told her once, exhausted. "Oh my God, relax," she said, laughing. "This is why everyone calls you intense." The breaking point came 3 months before the wedding when our venue called me to confirm the cancellation. I was at work, staring at a contract, when my mobile flashed with the venue's number. "Hi Anna," the coordinator said. "I just wanted to clarify your email about canceling the booking for October 14th. It's not a problem, of course, but we'll need written confirmation from both you and your fiancé." My stomach dropped. "I didn't send any email," I said slowly. "We are absolutely not canceling." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, that's strange. We received an email from your account this morning." She read it out. It was written in this weird, formal but off tone, saying due to family circumstances, we were no longer proceeding with the wedding. Please release the date. I felt cold all over. "That's not me," I said. "Please ignore it. We are still on." I hung up and immediately checked my email. Nothing in sent. Nothing in drafts. Nothing in trash. I called tech support at work, perks of being in an office, asked them to check if my email had been accessed from another device. Nothing. My phone, my computer. That's it. Then I remembered something horrible. A few weeks earlier, Chloe had come over to help with wedding stuff, and at one point she'd used my laptop because her phone was dying. I'd been in the kitchen. My email was open. It was the only explanation that made sense. I confronted her that night. We met at a cafe near Mom and Dad's to chat. She showed up late, sunglasses on, like she was the main character in a music video. "What's up?" she asked, stirring sugar into a latte she didn't need. "Did you email the venue pretending to be me?" I asked, skipping the small talk. She froze for half a second before her face smoothed over. "What? No. Why would I do that?" "They called me today," I said. "They read the email out. It wasn't my wording, Chloe. I know how I write." "What are you doing?" She rolled her eyes. "Maybe they made a mistake. This isn't something you can brush off. I said, my voice rising. Did you try to cancel my wedding? Her chair scraped loudly as she leaned forward. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your perfect little life, you'd actually listen, she hissed. You're rushing into this. I'm trying to slow you down. I just stared at her. By canceling my venue behind my back? It wasn't canceled, she shot back. You seriously overreact to everything. I left that cafe shaking. Daniel was furious on my behalf. She's not just being difficult anymore, he said. She's actively interfering with things we've paid for. This is manipulation. I knew he was right, but the idea of not having my sister at my wedding felt like cutting off a limb. So instead of disinviting her, I did something else. I stopped trusting her. I locked down my accounts.
Passwords were changed.
Contracts were moved to a shared folder with Daniel only. Chloe got the bare minimum information. And I started paying more attention to the stories she told, which is how Leo came back into the picture. Leo dated Chloe for about a year, 2 years ago. I'd met him a handful of times. He was quiet, nerdy, worked in IT. I honestly thought he seemed nice, if a little overwhelmed by the chaos that is my sister. Then one day he was gone, and Chloe told everyone he'd been controlling and toxic. He's so obsessed with me, she'd say. He kept trying to isolate me from my friends. I had to block him on everything. We all nodded, because that's what we do. We rally behind Chloe. Then, about 6 weeks before the wedding, I was scrolling Instagram stories and saw Leo in a mutual friend's photo. It was a group dinner pic. He looked happy. Different. A random impulse made me click on his profile. It wasn't private. He'd posted some stuff about working overseas for a bit, some hiking, some boring food photos. In between, a post last year about leaving a toxic relationship and rebuilding his life. I don't know why, but I DM'd him. Hey Leo, it's Anna, Chloe's sister. Hope you don't mind me reaching out. I just wanted to ask you something privately about what happened between you two. I expected him to ignore it. Instead, he replied a few hours later. Hey Anna, wow, wasn't expecting that. Yeah, sure. What's up? One message turned into a long, honest conversation. I told him he didn't owe me anything, but I wanted to know if he really had been controlling, because that word carries weight. He told me, plainly, that Chloe had cheated on him twice, lied about where she was, used his credit card without asking, and when he confronted her, she accused him of monitoring her and flipped the narrative. He'd gone to therapy afterwards because he'd started doubting his own perception of reality. He sent screenshots of texts where he was literally asking, "Can we talk about boundaries?" and she was calling him clingy and boring. Reading their messages felt like watching a script I already knew by heart, just with different actors. At the end, he wrote, I'm not trying to badmouth your sister. I've moved on. But since you asked, I wanted to be honest. I hope your wedding planning is going better than that relationship did. I stared at that line for a long time. That's when the petty, tired, fed-up part of me snapped into focus. I didn't want to destroy Chloe. I didn't want drama for the sake of it. But I was so done with her rewriting reality and everyone else pretending it was fine. So I invited Leo to the wedding. Not as a date. I made that very clear. Hey, I wrote. This might sound weird and no pressure at all, but would you like to come to the wedding? Daniel and I both felt you got a really unfair narrative in our family. I'd like you to see that I don't buy it anymore. Also, Chloe's bringing a new guy and has been difficult. It might be good for certain people to see her alive. Well, and not the monster she made you out to be. Completely your call. He thought about it for a couple of days, then said yes. He even joked, I promise not to cause a scene. I'll just dance badly and eat canapes. Daniel thought it was hilarious and a little savage. As long as you're okay with whatever fallout comes, he said. I've got your back. Which brings us back to the moment Chloe spotted him walking into the reception. The ceremony itself went smoothly. She cried on cue, fluffed my train, smiled for photos. If you didn't know her, you'd think she was the perfect supportive sister. I almost let myself relax. Then we walked into the reception as husband and wife, and I saw Chloe's head snap toward the entrance where Leo was signing the guest book. Her face went white, then red. She held it together for the first course. Barely. She kept whispering to her new boyfriend, some guy named Trent whose personality was 70% hair product, and shooting daggers across the room. When the MC announced that we'd be doing a special dance with some honored guests, she looked smug, like she was about to be called up. Instead, our MC said, "First up, the bride would like to invite someone who didn't think he'd ever be at this event." I stood up, microphone in hand, heart pounding. "Leo," I said, smiling. "Can you join us for a minute?" The room buzzed. Leo looked startled but got up, cheeks pink. Chloe's fork clattered onto her plate. I wasn't going to humiliate anyone. That was never the plan. I just wanted the truth to stand in the same room as the lies for once. I took a breath. "Most of you know my sister Chloe," I said, glancing at her. "You also know that sometimes, in this family, stories get twisted. Tonight, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to acknowledge someone who got caught in the crossfire of those stories. Leo, you dated my sister. Things ended badly. I heard one version for a long time. Recently, I heard yours. I realized I'd never actually asked." The room had gone strangely quiet. "I'm not here to rehash old drama," I continued quickly. "I just want to say this. In this new chapter of my life, I'm choosing honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm done pretending not to see patterns. Leo, thank you for being honest with me. I'm glad you're doing well. You're welcome here as a friend." Then, before the tension snapped, I turned to the DJ and said, "Now let's dance before this gets too deep." The DJ, bless him, immediately launched into an 80s classic. I grabbed Daniel with one hand and Leo with the other and pulled them both onto the dance floor. Within 30 seconds, half the guests had joined us. It turned into this messy, joyous crowd dance. People were laughing, clapping, pulling each other in. I caught Chloe's eye once across the room. She looked furious. Trent was saying something in her ear, but she wasn't listening. For the rest of the night, every time she tried to stir something, loud sighs, dramatic exits, people were already mid-conversation about how fun the dance was, how good the food was, how happy Daniel and I looked. For once, she wasn't the main character. I was. And it felt incredible. The fallout, of course, came later. But that's another part of the story. Okay, inserting my commentator hat here for a second because, wow. First off, inviting Leo is top tier, lawful neutral pettiness. It's not keying someone's car or screaming at them in public. It's simply putting the truth in the same room as the lies and letting everyone draw their own conclusions. Emma doesn't drag Chloe by name, doesn't list specific sins, doesn't pull up a PowerPoint of screenshots during the speeches, which, honestly, some people on Reddit absolutely would. She just publicly acknowledges that she knows there was another side to the story. That's it. And the fact that this alone threatens Chloe so much tells you everything about how deeply she relies on controlling the narrative. Chloe's behavior is textbook golden child meltdown, sabotage under the guise of protecting her sister, undermining decisions, and then weaponizing the word, overreacting when called out. Canceling a venue is not a prank. It's financial and emotional sabotage. Her reaction in the cafe, admitting she did it to slow you down, is chilling. That's not concern, that's control. What I really like about Emma's strategy is that she finally stops playing defense. For years, her whole role in the family system has been damage control. Smooth things over, keep peace, downplay harm. On her wedding day, she switches to offense, but in a way that aligns with who she is. She doesn't become Chloe. She doesn't scream, cry, throw wine. She uses her mic time to set a boundary and define her values. That dance wasn't just about Leo. It was a symbolic, I'm not backing down from reality anymore. Anyway, let's see what fresh hell the aftermath brings.
Update. So yeah.
The comments on my original post, if this were actually Reddit, would probably be split between queen behavior and you're poking a hornet's nest. And honestly, both are valid. Because while the wedding day itself was mostly joyful, with that one tense undercurrent, what happened after was messy. The morning after the wedding, I woke up in the hotel room with Daniel snoring softly beside me, my dress hanging on the wardrobe door like a ghost. My phone had 23 unread messages. 4 were from Mum. 8 were from Chloe. The rest were from random cousins. I opened Mum's first.
Mum.
We need to talk about what you did last night.
Call me.
Then, you embarrassed your sister in front of everyone. I can't believe you did that on your own wedding day.
Cool.
No, congratulations, how are you? Just vibes. I didn't open Chloe's yet. My brain wasn't ready. Instead, I showered, had breakfast with Daniel, and tried to hold on to the memory of his stupidly soft smile when he'd said, "We're married," like he still couldn't believe it. When we got back to our place that evening to grab our bags for the mini honeymoon, I finally read Chloe's texts. "Chloe, what is wrong with you? You're actually sick. Inviting Leo? Making that little speech? You made me look like a villain in front of the whole family. You don't deserve a sister. Hope you're happy with your new friend. Don't ever speak to me again." Then, an hour later, "Chloe, and don't bother coming to my wedding or any big event in my life. I'm done." I felt this weird combination of sadness and relief reading those. Like a door I'd been holding shut for years had finally slammed on its own. Daniel saw my face and pulled me into a hug. "You okay?" "I think she disowned me," I said. He shrugged gently. "She'll either calm down or she won't. But you didn't do anything wrong." For the first time, I believed him more than the panicked voice in my head. The real confrontation happened a week later, when we got back from our mini honeymoon and Mum insisted we come over for a proper conversation. We walked into my parents' house, and the tension was thick enough to chew. Mum was at the table, arms folded. Dad sat opposite, unreadable. Chloe wasn't there, which honestly made it easier. Mum didn't waste time. "How could you humiliate your sister like that?" she demanded. "On your wedding day? You invited her ex without telling her? You brought up their relationship in a speech? What were you thinking?" My heart started racing, but I'd spent the past week replaying that moment over and over, examining it from every angle. I wasn't going to back down now. "What I was thinking," I said slowly, "was that Chloe has a pattern of hurting people and then twisting the story, so she's the victim. Leo included. Me included. And I'm done enabling that." Mum's eyes flashed. "Done enabling? She's your sister. She's also the person who tried to cancel my venue behind my back," I said. "Did she tell you that?" Mum's mouth opened, then closed. "She was worried about you rushing." "Did she tell you she went into my email and pretended to be me?" I asked, louder. "Did she show you the screenshots Leo has of her cheating on him and then calling him controlling when he confronted her?" Mum looked genuinely stunned. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Screenshots," he said. "What screenshots?" I pulled my phone out. I'd saved the ones Leo had sent. Not to weaponize, but because part of me knew this day was coming. I laid the phone on the table, turned toward them, and let them scroll. Watching my parents' faces as they read was like watching a wall crumble in slow motion. By the end, Mum's hands were shaking. "She told us he was obsessive," she whispered, "that he wouldn't leave her alone. He left when she cheated," I said quietly. "He blocked her. He went to therapy." She told everyone a different story. Dad exhaled sharply. "And she did the same with your wedding," he said. "It wasn't a question. I tried to talk to her about it," I said. "She told me I was overreacting, that she was trying to slow me down." We sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Mum said, "You still shouldn't have brought it up at the wedding." "I didn't," I replied. "I didn't say Chloe cheated or Chloe lied. I didn't mention details. I just acknowledged Leo as a human being and said I'd heard his side. If that alone made her look bad, that's not on me." Dad actually nodded slowly. "You didn't insult her," he said, surprising me. "You just made it clear you knew." Mum glared at him. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on the side of reality," he said, rubbing his temples. "I love our daughter. Both of them. But we have closed our eyes to certain things with Chloe because it was easier. Maybe too easy." Mum's bottom lip trembled. "She's my baby. She's a 26-year-old woman. I said gently. Who keeps hurting people and never being held accountable because we all tiptoe around her. I won't cut her off, but I'm not going to keep sacrificing my peace, so she can stay comfortable. In the days that followed, family group chats became battlegrounds. Some cousins messaged me privately. Honestly, good on you. We've all seen how she treats people. Others sided with Chloe, parroting her version. You made her ex the center of your wedding. That's weird. I shrugged more than I argued. If someone was determined to believe I'd turned my wedding into a vendetta, nothing I said would change their mind. Leo, by the way, sent me a message the next day.
Lao.
Hey, just wanted to say thank you for inviting me. It was a bit surreal, but I actually had fun. You look genuinely happy. Also, sorry for any extra drama this caused.
Me.
You didn't cause it. You just existed where you're not supposed to, according to her script. Thanks for coming. Over the next few months, something strange happened. My relationship with my parents improved. Not in a fairy tale way. Mom still defended Chloe sometimes. Dad still went quiet when emotions ran high. But they started asking me more questions instead of making assumptions. How's work? How's married life? Are you and Daniel doing anything for the holidays? Small things, but new. Chloe, on the other hand, stuck to her guns. She blocked me on Instagram, removed me from her close friends, and apparently told people I'd publicly shamed her. She and Trent got engaged 6 months later and set a date almost exactly a year after my wedding. I got a text from her once in that time. Chloe, FYI, you're not invited. Don't want any surprises at MY wedding. I stared at it for a while, then replied.
Me.
Okay. I hope you treat your guests better than you treated mine. Then I put my phone down and went back to my actual life. Daniel and I spent our first anniversary eating cheap Thai food on the couch, watching a terrible reality show about brides fighting over dresses. He paused the TV at one point, looked at me, and said, "Do you regret how you handled it?" I thought about it, really thought. No, I said. I regret that it had to come to that. But I don't regret choosing myself for once. He kissed my forehead. Good, he said, because I married the woman who finally stood up for herself. I'm proud of her. And that, more than anything, made the whole messy, dramatic, exhausting saga worth it. Because my sister tried to sabotage my wedding. But in the end, I walked down that aisle, married the man I love, and stole the show in the only way that really matters, by refusing to play the role she wrote for me. She can keep her script. I'm busy living my own story now. Alright, deep dive time, because this family drama has layers. Emma, the bride/narrator, she's been cast as the easy child her whole life, the one who doesn't make waves, holds the family together, and quietly eats the consequences of everyone else's chaos. The wedding planning process simply amplified an existing dynamic. Chloe acts out, parents minimize, Emma absorbs. The moment Emma starts making active choices, locking down her accounts, inviting Leo, publicly acknowledging the truth, she shifts from supporting character to protagonist in her own life. That's huge. Is inviting Leo morally gray? Sure. But it's also measured. She doesn't stand up at the mic and scream, "My sister is a cheating, manipulative gremlin." She simply says, "There is another side and I choose to see it." That's not cruelty. That's refusing to gaslight herself. Chloe, the saboteur sister, honestly? Walking red flag in a bridesmaid dress. Her core trait is entitlement. She feels entitled to control Emma's wedding, Emma's relationships, and the narrative around her own ex. Canceling the venue wasn't a prank. It was a serious, premeditated attempt to disrupt a major life event while maintaining plausible deniability. The "I was trying to slow you down" line is insidious. Abusers and manipulators love framing control as concern. Add in her habit of rewriting history. Leo is controlling. Emma is intense. She's always the victim. And you've got a full-blown main character syndrome case study. Her nuclear reaction to Leo existing at the wedding proves that what she feared most wasn't harm. It was exposure. Mom and Dad, these two aren't cartoon villains. They're exhausted referees who accidentally raised a tyrant by never blowing the whistle. Mom is emotionally fused with Chloe. She's my baby, is doing so much heavy lifting here. Dad's more detached but complicit. His silence, and that's just how she is, attitude helped build the stage Chloe performs on. Their arc is subtle but important. Confronted with hard evidence, screenshots, venue email, they're forced to admit they've been rewarding the wrong behavior. Dad, especially, earns some redemption by siding with reality rather than whichever daughter cries loudest. Mom drags her feet, but even she cracks enough to stop painting Emma as the villain. Leo, honestly king of minding his own business. He gets smeared, does therapy, moves on, and only re-engages when Emma reaches out respectfully. Coming to the wedding is a risk, but he handles it with more grace than half the actual family. He's not there to stir drama. He's living proof that Chloe's stories are not gospel. Overall verdict: Emma didn't destroy the family. She introduced accountability into a system that's allergic to it. Chloe absolutely deserved to be knocked off her self-built pedestal, not with cruelty, but with truth. If she ever does real introspection, this wedding might be the mirror that finally forces her to see herself clearly. Until then, Emma is right to protect her peace and invest in the relationships, Daniel, her parents in their slightly improved form, even Leo as a casual friend, that exist in reality, not in Chloe's carefully curated version.